always see them. But that's the problem. I put them in shoe boxes and I forget about them. Oh, I've got red glittery Converse.
Right.
Why did I not wear those? Yeah, I do have too many shoes, but...
You gotta put them on display.
That was the reason I got those. I don't know if I told you the reason I got those is because I was having some kind of meltdown, depressed, panicky night one night, and he said, "You want your Christmas present?" I was like, I guess that's the benefit of having those little episodes sometimes. People just want to please you. I got my Christmas presents early.
Aww.
But
all 5 of them.
I know. I'll have to, we start midnights this week, so I'll work next weekend on getting everything cleaned up. You know, it's weird. We had our Christmas party this weekend, and I had worked for, 2 or 3, 4 weeks on all the crafts and the decorations and things like that to get everything set up for the Christmas party. Christmas party came. I got those presents from Bo. I got the presents from you. Mm-hmm. And everybody left after the Christmas party, and I started cleaning up, and I was like, it's almost like that Christmas after Christmas blues has hit me already because Christmas is over.
Yeah, there's not really much.
There's not much left because we have to work. And I mean, we'll be getting together that one morning for about an hour, which I was looking today. It'll be just like today. So you'll show up about 8. Nanny will be here. We'll have some cinnamon rolls, open a couple presents, and we'll all be in bed by 10 a.m.
Yeah.
to get ready to go back to work Christmas night. Somebody's got to keep the lights on, and somebody's got to be there for the sick people. Mm-hmm. But I digress. First, I want to say we did get, if you're listening on a podcast, yay, we did get everything sent out to all the podcast formats, but we had some technical issues with the sound last time, and I'm pretty sure...
This is Surviving on Wine and Cuss Words. I'm Emily.
And I'm Charlotte.
And we will do better at making podcasts.
That's right. We're getting started.
Yeah, there was a little bit of a glitch with the last 2 episodes. My mic was really quiet. I don't know if it came unplugged. If you're an audio guru, please hit me up because I'm struggling over here. You see Garage Band running.
Yeah, because when we had our headphones on and we were doing it, we could hear everything, and then it came out and it was just really weird. And
good thing Mom talked most.
I did, because I was reading those notes. But on a subject like this, because you had discussed, should we go back and record it again? I'm like, it's so hard to redo anything because there's so many points that come up that don't necessarily come up when you're not just naturally flowing in your conversation, so it's hard to do that. So we hope that everybody gained what they could gain from that, and it was finishing out the story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we really wanted to tell the story about our legal journey. Quick trigger warning before we get started for discussion of sexual abuse, sexual assault, and childhood sex abuse.
Right.
We kind of left off with ending the story with our legal story, which is kind of, officially where the story ends, I want to say. But now we're gonna get into the healing journey and what it means to
move on
in other ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess some people make a podcast about it. But one thing that I did not have when I started this was resources. I felt really alone, but I also felt like people who should have been there for me were maybe uneducated about the situation.
At what time? After you disclosed or before?
So after I disclosed.
Obviously, I look back, and Children's Advocacy Center is what I continue to attribute so much of me as a non-offending parent being able to attribute to making it through, basically. I knew I had to be the support kind of try to keep things together and keep rolling on a natural plane while we still showed up for court, while we still dealt with the legal stuff. And I didn't know what to do. You didn't know what to do. We were lost, and they were who came in to guide me into this is the next step. This is what you'll have next. We're going to get therapy started, and we help with the $1,000 that you got. I know it just hit me what I was thinking about earlier. And what I was thinking about earlier was the therapy that you and your brother gave yourselves in the form of your dad was dumb enough to put you on a credit card as an authorized user.
Yeah.
There are certain things that you do, and it's, I was thinking about that story last night, and he did, and I thought, I never knew, I never went back, and this was him with a credit card in life, before he got arrested, his credit card, $1,000 limit, I don't think it had much on it, but so diluted, and I don't know how to describe it sometimes because I can't put my mind in it, but so diluted that he wanted you as a partner. You weren't even 18, so you couldn't be a joint account holder with him. So he put you on the card as an authorized user. Like that's one step closer. I'm going to put her on the card as an authorized user, and here we've got this account together. And well, that was dumb because you were a kid, and then you were an angry kid.
Yeah.
And Amazon got the reward.
Yeah.
And he got stuck with the bill. But, things like that, helping us with not scholarships, but like victims funds. They have funds here in the state of Tennessee that go to children who lose parents to the justice system because it's not the kid's fault. Right. In other situations, if parents get sent to jail, typically the kids are not at fault and they're the ones that are going to suffer. So they have funds like that set up. Yeah. And, they helped us get through that. They gave us the therapy. I talk about them a lot. When it was happening, I didn't realize how supportive it was. But in the end, it's like, I wouldn't have known which way was up. Especially with you. They gave me a lot of tips. I hate it in my mind. It's like a scary movie. But like one night in here, when this was your bedroom, trying to take your phone away from you because you had said something horrible or disrespectful or, whatever, cussed or yelled or did something that was not supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to punish you because I'm not good at it. And all I could think is, give me your phone. And you just freaked the fuck out. Freaked out. And I couldn't understand why. And we're yelling at each other and we're screaming at each other. And I am in here thinking, I can't lose. I have just fucked up as a parent. I need this win. And my mind and my emotions took over where I am physically trying to take the phone from you and you are physically trying to keep it. And we're almost fighting with each other. And I leave without the phone, mad. Oh, I'm just a shitty parent. And I go in the bedroom and just fall to my knees and just sob. I can't do this. I don't even want to wake up tomorrow. I don't know what's going on. But in taking that to therapy and taking that to them where they have seen these particular child sex abuse cases, and they know real particular things like, okay, don't freak out. Your punishment, might be normal in normal circumstances, but this was her lifeline. She's been, Emily, I'm being told you had no control over things for a long time. And that phone was your it was your key to the cell. If you got locked somewhere, that phone puts you somewhere else. Don't take it away. That is her safety net. And, things like that were said to me where you can't just come in and typically discipline. You just can't, And so they gave me tiny little things like that along the way that, I mean, it put us where we are now.
They were experts in their field. So as we've said before, kind of what we're getting into on this episode is resources. So what we've mentioned before is our really positive experience with a children's advocacy center, which are typically, they're going to be in your city or in your county. There'll be a children's advocacy center that's assigned to most like violent crimes that children experience. And they were just experts. And so they were just a really great resource. Again, honestly, they were so understanding, and they knew what was going on. They knew what was going on before I did. They, they explained, you're going to feel this way and you're going through this. And it's like, oh my God, like nobody's ever related to this before.
I got a letter from CAC this week, and it has a quote in it that I want to read. The reason I wanted to go, I'm sorry we're back, was because you said they know, they're very specific, right? And this quote comes from the forensic interviewer. Mm-hmm. And it said, there was no way this girl was coming with me into the interview room. She was shut down from the minute she walked in, hunched over, arms crossed, and covering her body and not looking up. She let her hair hang over her face and barely spoke above a whisper. I was inclined to think she'd not tell me a thing. Kids tell in their own time, sometimes years later, and this one was nowhere near close to ready to tell. She followed me back through and hunkered down in a big chair. I asked her about her family and school, knocking on various doors of rapport to see if I could find one she'd open for me. Slowly she did, opening up a little bit about this and then a little more about that. After well over an hour of talking, she told me everything her stepdad had done to her. But she was like a new kid when she left, with her hair brushed back off her face. She thanked me and said, I feel lighter. I felt a heavy weight for a while after that one, but it was absolutely worth it. She was just a young girl, and she needed help carrying a very heavy, very ugly burden. Looking back, it was an honor to help her carry it for a while. And that's where a lot of people don't know how to get a child to open up. Mm-hmm. And
they're experts.
They're experts in that field. And I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, you're fine. What was that? What was that letter?
Oh, it was for fundraising.
Okay.
We're asking you to lift that weight in our community. It may be hard to believe, but last year the Children's Advocacy Center served 887 individual children, and that's just in our county. Mm-hmm. 887 children, and over 5,000 adults, which parents grandparents,
caregivers,
mm-hmm.
foster parents.
And we're trained through our prevention education programs, creating a safer, more informed community. And the support provides invaluable help of victims of child abuse. And that's what it is. But that's a very, some people might get things like that and think, they don't think much about it. But me putting you as that little girl, mm-hmm. that forensic interviewer, means a lot to me.
Yeah.
Which means anything I can give, I will always give. They're very particular with volunteers. They have things for volunteers to do, but you can't just walk into a children's advocacy center and volunteer.
It's locked down, and it's a very safe, space to be in.
Mm-hmm.
So, having the Children's Advocacy Center was a great resource. And as I was kind of learning about what it meant to be a victim, a survivor of child abuse, I was realizing the flaws in how other people around me saw it. So the first thing that I noticed is, you go to tell somebody and you expect this very expert response of, it's not your fault, or, this wasn't your burden to carry, anything like that. The first type of response I got were just people who wanted to dig deeper, which was not what I was trying to do, because I had already been in and out of forensic interviews and trials and all kinds of telling my story in ways that I wasn't ready to relive. And so I can remember a specific example where I went to a teacher, and it was a teacher that I'd had for a long time, and I went to her and told her, hey, my dad got arrested last night. He was arrested for rape, and I was the victim. And she cried. And that was super awkward first, because here I am, like, comforting her. And then, she wanted to know more, like, how did this happen? When was this going on? Da, 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 da. But my point of telling her was so that I had an advocate in my own high school who understood when I needed to walk away or take breaks or just be, just for someone to understand what was going on at home. I wanted so badly for someone at my high school to understand that I had just made this huge, like, life-changing shift. And I was scared to come back to school after all this had happened at home.
You never know how people are going to react.
Right. Yeah. Do you have a story about that?
Well, I did. I mean, you said the words that put it in my head. I wanted the same thing. We're dealing with the same story, but two different paths that you and I have to walk on. And at work, I told one person, a supervisor who's no longer there anymore, but he did better because he didn't ask any questions. He listened to me, and he went to the other supervisors, like he was up here, and the 5 direct supervisors are right here, and said, I'm not going to say anything to you about why, but if Charlotte comes to you and says, I need to go, she needs to go. You don't ask questions. You make sure minimum shift is covered, and you let her go. Because there are times with Alex getting the calls from the school, you need to come. You calling me, all it took was you saying, I just had a nightmare, if I was on midnights, and I would go to them and say, I'm going home. I got to go home because I wanted to be there for you. But I see where you're coming from, where you got someone you had to comfort because they didn't know how to react. And I got someone who did what I needed them to do. Say, don't ask any questions. If she needs to go, she needs to go.
Right.
And that's a major thing that CAC provided. They know how to react. Even if you don't think at the time that it's what you need, they know that this is what you need. It's as simple as a cup of tea. When I was sitting out in the hallway one day waiting for you, it wasn't my appointment, it wasn't a day that I was going to see anybody, and I'm just staring off into space, and maybe there were tears in my eyes, I don't know, but one of the ladies passed by me, said hi, they're always very nice, and then came back with a cup of hot tea, and like then I just lost my shit and started crying and talking to her. She sat down on the bench and started talking to me. They know. Yeah. You're a mom. First of all, if you're a parent who has your child here, you care enough to have them here, because there are so many that don't.
Right.
And that's still unfathomable to me. But there are so many that don't. So if they get the parent in there and the child in there, they want to keep them. They want them there so that they can get the help they need.
Right.
So that's, they were my biggest resource. But like you said, when you're going through it, it's like, why are you telling me this? You kind of question it. When I went in and asked for a group, can you please suggest a group? Is there a non-offending parents group so we can all sit around and commiserate and I did this and I did that and oh here, let me tell you, here's how we did it so that I can feel so not alone. There's no group like that.
Yeah.
Sorry, we can't. There's just not a group like that. So they, they were there to be that group for me anyway.
Yeah.
And, that went all the way up to as far as the resources. You remember going to yoga?
Yeah.
They referred us to a yoga class that was specifically for survivors of sexual abuse.
Right.
Whatever poses, whatever music they used, it was designed towards that group. So there's very specific resources out there for people. And, you may not even know you need, but they know you need it because they've been there hundreds of times, 887 times so far this year in our county.
Right.
So they know.
Another interesting thing that I ran into in college was I guess you would call it like an art project called the Clothesline Project. And this was just something I happened to stumble on. I saw these shirts hanging in this room, and you walk in, all these shirts have writing on them. And so based on whatever kind of violence you experienced as a child correlated to that shirt color, and then you would kind of write anything you wanted or draw anything you wanted. And I caught them right before, they were closing up for the day. And I was like, I want to write one. I want to make a shirt. And I put it up there. And she took my picture next to it. And that shirt, travels with their art show for, other people. They set up a gallery of, all the shirts to look at. And I was just super happy to get that out there. So there's, so many things that you can find that just happen to be a part of your healing process where you're like, I really am not alone. There were so many people. I remember going through and reading those shirts. There were so many people who I was like, I fucking understand. I understand.
And if I remember correctly, I think it was very early in your college, and I don't think you had let anyone know. I don't think you had really told your story, if I remember the story correctly. And I can imagine being you, away from home, no one around me knows what's happened. I'm kind of keeping it a secret, and walking in a hall of shirts.
Yeah.
The Clothesline Project, starting to read them, and then asking about it, and then understanding that every shirt in here is someone who has suffered some sort of abuse. And they have taken some liberty with the shirt, some freedoms, some fuck yous, some I'm better than yous, whatever they wrote with the paint markers or the pens, and they were hanging up. And I can imagine you reading them thinking, holy shit, I'm not alone. But your shirt you were smiling so big when you sent me the picture of that shirt. And when I read what you wrote, that was therapy for me. I mean, I still have a picture of it in my phone. And then the next year, when your college came up on my Facebook feed and the Clothesline Project had made its way around the country and was back in your school, your picture and shirt was the one that was on the, cover photo for Clothesline Project.
Yeah.
And it's nice to know that something you said for your own healing on a piece of clothing that some other little girl might see would help her, because the one thing you wrote in red was, you can't take away the day I told my mom.
Yeah.
So all the other was black or blue writing, and that one line where you were going down and listing things, I'll look for it in a minute.
Yeah.
The red line said, you can't take away the day I told my mom. Yeah. And so every girl that read that, from the point you hung it up on that clothesline to now, knows that was a very special time when you told someone.
Right.
And could encourage them to tell someone too.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can find it. Clothesline Project. Look it up. Look it up if it's in your town. If it's near your town, just go see it. It's very emotional.
Another thing to mention while we're talking about resources, while she pulls this picture up, is get a therapist.
Yeah.
You know, I don't even have to tell you guys, you really need a therapist, and I know that it can be hard to open up to a stranger, and I know that it can be time consuming to find a good therapist and somebody you really connect with, but it is worth it, and it does create a safe outlet and a good outside perspective for what's going on in your life, as well as I worked with a child therapist that specialized in childhood sexual abuse, so she really knew what route we were going to take through this process, and find yourself an expert.
And that's another.
Might as well. That's what they study. That's what they do. They understand how this affects you psychologically, even when you don't. And I see a lot of people. I know a couple people who have been sexually abused, but don't want to reveal that abuse, and their reasoning behind it is because they say that it doesn't affect them. And I used to feel the same way, like it doesn't affect me, but I never really understood the true depth of like the effect it had on my psyche until I started going to therapy and really picking apart things that I would do, especially to sabotage other relationships with other human beings, that I was totally okay with overlooking and living my life like that without making improvements that have just made my life so much better now that I'm aware of those bad habits I developed from being a child who was abused.
And you, excuse me, you learned that through them. They told us that. I find that interesting. They told us that before you may not even know it. They said, here's what she's going to do. She's going to push you away. She's going to test you. She could be on the promiscuous end with men, just to say, see, they are all scum. Mm-hmm. Like to prove it, like but they told us that was going to happen. Mm-hmm. What you were doing before they even, because they know.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm going to find it. You reminded me of it. You okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there's what I was going to say earlier when you were asking about telling people find resources, find a therapist. Mm-hmm. That is also another reason we're here, and I'm excited to make this podcast because I had the benefit of you disclosing. Mm-hmm. You disclosing and me calling the police got our first referral. But if you don't disclose, if you're not ready to disclose, you don't have someone telling you, here is this and here is this. We're here to tell you that. If you're not ready, we can help find a therapist. If you don't know, if it's an overwhelming task just to think, where can I find one? Mm-hmm. We have, places that we can direct you to.
Yeah.
And that's why we want to be a resource for people who just may be out there listening. Excuse me.
Another thing that I would like to get into in the realm of resources was that not most people won't understand. But when you find a person who does, a therapist, a trusted friend, a family member, Any sort of professional that you can talk to who does understand, keep them close. Like, absolutely. Because the isolation of the situation can feel really deafening. But, you'll find people who do understand, who you really aren't alone. Going back to like my last year of high school, I just wanted like someone to understand and to kind of advocate for when I just needed to have an emotional breakdown to like keep the other kids away from me for making fun of me, things like that. And I tried to tell another teacher about what was going on, and they reported me to the school guidance counselor after I told them. And then I remember the guidance counselor came and found me and was like, your teacher told me what you told them. Like, I'm here to talk to you. And I like started crying, and she was like, why are you crying? And I was like, I don't know, because I just needed want my teachers to understand what was going on. I don't need a therapist. I have a therapist. Like, thank you, guidance counselor. But like, I don't know, just. And so I remember getting really disappointed when I would tell people, because I expected the feeling, people to say, it's not your fault, or, you did nothing wrong. Especially when you tell like friends and family, it can be unfortunate, but, there were certain people I tell where it's like, they don't quite understand that you're still a victim if you're underage. It doesn't matter, if I didn't physically fight him away, that just, or that it's my fault, or what were you wearing, or, we start going down those lines of thought, and you realize that you're with people, you're like, well, you really don't understand what I went through if you can't even picture how this could come together,
Yeah, it's not anyone's fault. When you hear news like this, not everyone's equipped to handle it. That's what the resources are for,
right?
To help you out. I don't know. I didn't know what to do. I'm sure I screwed up. I know I screwed up many times, but they were there to pull me back and say, you shouldn't do that, or you shouldn't say that, or let's avoid that, or let's work on that. And that's why it's so important. I found the picture from your clothesline project, and we can even include it if you want, but I'm going to read it.
Okay.
Because your shirt says, I am stronger than him. He can't control me. He can't cry to me. He can't tell me what to drink. He can't disagree with me.
With the judge.
Oh, he can't disagree with the judge. He can't threaten to disown me. He can't touch me. He can't tell me what to wear. He doesn't scare me anymore. He can't take away the day I told my mom. He can't tell me, he can't help it. He can help it. He can't make me sleep in the bed anymore. Looking like my mom is not an excuse. 19 years old, 12 years old, 9 years old, 12 years old, 16 years old. It's not my fault and never will be. And that shirt has been seen by thousands of girls that could have helped. There's so many resources.
Yeah.
Everyone needs a therapist. Not just someone who's been abused, or everyone needs a therapist, I believe. But, you found one at college too, so.
Let's see. Other resources that I used were actually self-help books. Like, I was big into self-help books before I ever started on this healing journey. But, I was super excited. One of my therapists from college recommended The Courage to Heal by Elaine Bass. It's a really good just walk through of kind of what you're going to experience, and that healing is not a linear journey. Healing is circular. You're going to wrap back around to things, and that doesn't mean you're failing, and that doesn't mean you're not healing. I think that was really important for me to let go of how I thought this was supposed to go. You don't have to heal if you don't tell anybody. But it's like, now that I've turned my dad in, like, time to make gains, make some results. Let's get better. All done, and it's just not like that. And don't let that discourage you or feel like you did something wrong, because you have now started this healing journey that feels like more trouble than it's worth. Because at the end of the day, every day you wake up, you're getting better, and you're healing, and you're learning about yourself, and you're learning how to overcome, and you're learning how strong you are, and you're learning how resilient you are every day.
You're talking about it. You feel, why do this? Because it hurts more than you think it's helping. That's what they told us in the beginning. Your therapy, your time is going to include going down, because they would have to teach you why everything he had taught you was wrong. Because you had been conditioned for so many years to try to get you in the mindset of everything's okay. They told us she's going to go down before she comes back up, because we have to start by telling her why what he's been telling her for years is wrong.
Right.
And so she's going to be low before she gets back up. So you went even lower, and that's when you kind of want to put your arms in the air and say, why did I even do this at all?
Yeah.
Why did I tell anybody? Because this sucks. This still hurts. Where's the magic wand?
Yeah. And so I think part of what we want to do with this podcast is, of course, like, make people around you resources. Educate people that childhood sex abuse is more psychological than physical. Educate people that sex crimes can happen to any race, any gender, any age, by any race, any gender, any age. You know what I mean? And so educate
There's too many
people around you that family isn't just family. Like, you don't have to sit there and take it. Educate people that there are resources. Like, spread the word that you don't have to sit there and take it anymore. I was listening to a really interesting podcast, Someplace Underneath, with Natalie Jean, on the Last Podcast Network. And in her latest episode, she was talking about how this was like in the 70s, the 60s, the 70s, girls would be forced to have hysterectomies if they found out that their father or someone in their family was sexually abusing them. Instead of, taking care of the abuser, it was like, well, she better have a hysterectomy so she doesn't get pregnant.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
It has been accepted for so long, and we break this by talking about it. We break this by saying it's not okay. It isn't just one of those things that isn't just your weird uncle. Like, it's...
But it is, too.
It's not.
No, not just. I'm saying that's included in this.
Right.
It's not, because those are things that probably get underreported more than anything, our family, because
that's the majority of all.
Nobody wants to say, and then you feel like you did something wrong. I mean, I remember being taken to Bible study group, having to tag along with mom and dad, and getting sent upstairs with all the kids, and there was an older kid upstairs who, in my memory, was probably somebody who's old enough to know better, wanting to see between my legs, or wanting to touch between my legs, and all I thought was, I just want to get out of here because I feel super uncomfortable, but there's no way I can tell anybody downstairs. Or if you tell somebody downstairs, they're like, boys will be boys.
Yeah, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Glad you got out of there.
Are you hurt? Are you bleeding? Well, let's go. Because that's just kind of the way
it was.
We were dealt with back then. So you just didn't say anything. I mean, it happened a lot. And that's just weird. It's one thing when you've got a 10-year-old and a 8-year-old and they're curious, and that's one thing. But when it's someone old enough to know better, that's a totally different thing, and it shouldn't be swept under the rug. Like, we'll just deal with this ourselves, because that's what gets you in places that you're in, because that's what happened with the history of yours. If they had dealt with what they had when they knew what was going on in their family and swept under the rug, it might not have happened to you or anyone else.
Of course, if you know anything about abuse, the cycle of abuse, generational abuse, a lot of times children who are abused become abusers in their adult life. And that's kind of exactly what happened with my father, is that he was abused as a child, and then you never get help, you never get therapy, you never break this cycle, you learn it's okay, you grow up, you keep on doing it. This is why it's so important to break in there and to get help. You have to see why this isn't okay. You cannot spread this to your kids.
You have to know. And I mean, if you can trust what he said was true, he said he told, and he got in trouble. So, that's just, I'm not trying to excuse him or what he did, but if what he's saying is true, they screwed up. Not only did they not do anything about it, but he got in trouble from what he said. Right. So, you're just perpetuating it. It's a cycle. That's something that's entered Alex's head, your brother, from the beginning. Just because he is, does that mean I'm going to? No, we broke this cycle. You are not.
I saw myself kind of following. My dad was very angry, and so I a lot of times mimicked that pattern of anger, and I guess you just absorb it really quick. It just becomes a part of the only way that you've dealt with anything, because that's the only way you've seen adults in your life deal with anything. So that's what kids are supposed to do. They're sponges. They suck up all this information about how to deal with the world, and how I dealt with the world, was screaming at people I loved and just being a terrible person. And I had to come out of that if I was going to enjoy my life.
But you had to be helped out of that.
Right.
You had to understand why it was wrong before you could try to heal.
Because I thought I was fine, just the way it was, just the way it all was. Everything was fine. If it could only get worse
by telling.
There was such a capacity for it to get so much better than I ever imagined. I live a life that I just, little me would have died for. You know what I mean? I've got a boyfriend who loves me so, so dearly. Truly loves me, not manipulates me to get what he wants. Just truly loves me for what I want. I believed that if I walked out the door and said, I need to go to Alaska and I don't want you there and I need it right now, he would go, okay, because he loves me. Even if that means he's not in the picture. And that's a true selfless love. Not a manipulation, not coercion.
Coercion. Or something expected in return.
Right, exactly. It's just true. And so my, because especially as a female with a dad, you kind of, I am in a heterosexual relationship, so I kind of mimic those relationships. That's what you're supposed to do. I mean, that's very common. And so, to be in a place where I truly am in a healthy relationship is just something that I think I would have flipped for.
Or not known because you were attempting to be taught that other things were normal. So then you look at this and it's out of the norm. It's a dream world, something that every little girl, every little boy who is allowed to dream about what they think is normal or what they think they will strive to, and that is in their reality, that is in their goal, but it wasn't in your goal. It was like a fantasy to you to be where you are now. I knew you would be. But I knew you too. You just had to, we had to come out of it.
Yeah. But, so that is our episode kind of about our resources and the resources we use. Children's Advocacy Center, clubs, yoga, journaling, books, therapists, and more therapists.
Clothesline project. Starting projects like that help too, as far as resources.
Start a podcast.
Yeah.
Tell the entire world what happened between you and your dad. Whatever floats your boat. Whatever helps you get through this. That's the important part. And if one person hears this and is like, I do deserve a better life. Like, I deserve to go ahead and tell somebody, no matter how hard it might seem up front. You're worthy of that. You're worthy of this like beautiful life that lays on the other side. And I'm not a person who likes to look around at their life and think it could be better. You know what I mean? I hate to, I love to look around and just appreciate everything the way it is. But you don't have to take it. There's a line,
And you soon find out if you're hiding something, you're spending so much stress trying to keep it hidden. You told me that. Well, Rebecca told me that. The therapist told me that. You don't get to feel guilty, Mom, because she went to painstaking efforts to keep you from finding out. So the person who's trying to hide it, who's not disclosing it, you're suffering other stress on top of the stress of the things that are going on, because trying to hide it, that's like trying to keep a secret. Yeah. It's exhausting. So eventually, you just, it takes so much weight off of you to disclose it or to stop hiding. It takes so much weight off of it.
Well, I think we're about to wrap up here. Of course, as always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please email us at survivingonwineandcusswords@gmail.com.
That's right. Thank you for the love.
Podcast up on all podcast platforms: Spotify, Google, Apple, Amazon, anything you can look a podcast up in. We are there. Surviving on Wine and Cuss Words. Please leave a comment. Please leave a like. We love to see that you guys are watching this and actually enjoying it and engaging with it. And we hope to do some palate cleanser episodes. So I know that it can feel a little exhausting. Maybe, it's not like a fun Friday watch. You know what I mean? But maybe if we played some games, you got to know us a little more outside of
that tragedy.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
We could kind of make some palate cleanser videos for you guys to still enjoy us, still enjoy the podcast, but maybe not get into heavy topics all the time.
I thought, we're going to get into this Christmas season and talk about how things affect you around the holidays, but it would be nice to it would be nice to have a little step away from it, just me and you, just
Right.
kind of talk about us.
Yeah.
Because we are not defined by that. You are not defined by that.
Yeah. That's
And-
something I care about talking about.
Yeah. I mean, but it doesn't define you.
Right.
And that's something that I think people are scared of sometimes, telling it that that's going to be all people see when they see them.
Well,
And that's not true.
as always, enjoy yourself, enjoy your day. I'm going to go home and go to bed.
I'm going to take a nap. We're both going to go into midnight tonight.
Yes.
Midnight
okay.
shift. So
All right, guys.
we will see you next week. Or you'll hear from us next week. Bye.